All right, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and another lovely day for markets, which continued their rally. SPY was up 1.3%, Qs were up 1.9%, and IWM also doing fairly well today, up 1.1%. The Dow even up 1.3%. Gold was up just 10 basis points after a big move yesterday, and the bonds got a small bounce today, which basically kind of got faded towards the end of the day. But still, even to see the bonds catch a little bit of green today is a little bit of relief at this point. I think everybody's watching the bonds at this point and wondering what's going on with yields, or at least watching yields very closely. So really nice price action. If I can get my mouse to get over here, I will show you what we did for the day. Oh, here we go. There we go. I thought I was going to have an issue there. So really, just to kind of break down today, and these value areas, which I don't know if I mentioned yesterday in yesterday's video, but how well we're using these in the trading room. They're really giving us a good sense of what we got going on for the day. Obviously yesterday morning when we had the CPI report, we had that big volatility. We had that big drop after the report and recovered. But the value area was really something that there's a couple traders who went long on the retake of yesterday's value area, and we didn't really look back after reclaiming the value area yesterday. So a really good place to go long. And then the same thing today. First hour of the day was getting a little bit dicey there a bit, as it looked like you start to have these thoughts of like, hey, maybe we've ran into resistance, very similar to what we did last Wednesday. And I just said, hey, hold on a second. Let's see if we can actually reclaim, hold in here. And you can see this is the 5-minute bar, which you get the value areas on. And so we just briefly fell into value, and then we turned right back around. It took a little time, but I mean, basically, it's a 45-degree angle up and to the right. So they just really give a good support and resistance areas where you don't get faked out of the market. If we happen to see a breakdown yesterday below that value area once the market opened, then I would say, hey, we've got a situation on our hands. And the same thing with today. If we had more than a decent move back, and I think this was also tagged on the hourly bar as well. You could see S&P futures on the hourly bar also came right into support. So it makes it, I don't want to say it's easy, because nothing is easy, but to have this nice area where you can kind of look and you could say, hey, if you look in the 5-minute bar, we're falling right into support, or same thing for resistance. It's a great place to take targets. Look at Kodak, for example, today. This was a trade that I took in the trading room today. This is not something that I generally play. I played this for a day trade today, but there was a really nice order, aggressive order, 2,900 of the July 7.5 calls. I bought stock because it's a $7 stock. There's no real reason to kind of mess with it. But if you go to the 5-minute bar, which Thinkorswim is not cooperating, but you can kind of see what I mean. This was a great place for me to take off the trade. You could see that VPOC up there, right, which comes from the value areas. So here was your virgin point of control. Again, these lines were drawn automatically. And again, I can't make that up any better. So I said this in the trading room. I said, hey, I'll take this position off. And I bought 500 shares, and I took off basically 200 right at here. I'm just holding 100. But, I mean, look at this thing. It tagged it, and it moved away from it. So, again, it's a great place to find resistance and to find where you could take some targets, because sometimes we do see reversions after we hit the VPOCs. Not always, but sometimes we do see a reversion after that. So that was a really nice trade. And just to look at sectors, best performing groups, a couple themes of the day. This IGV ETF is one of my favorite ETFs, just because it's performed so well in 2017. And so the IGV ETF, if you're not familiar with this ETF, it's your enterprise software companies I call them business to business, but I guess that's an old way to describe it. But you know, this was right after obviously Cisco reported a nice earnings report. But and then there was also an upgrade by Salesforce.com, which I put out, and I've been long Salesforce.com. So you know, just a real nice play today. But you know, it's funny because, and I'm not faulting anybody for doing this, but it's funny when everybody starts tweeting about, oh, look, you know, look at what Microsoft is doing today. Look at what Data is doing today. Look at what Splunk is doing today. They're all the same group. So you don't really have to, you know, if you could pick out these individual names, great. But when the whole group is moving like this thing's up. This ETF was up 2.5% today, and again, you could see what names are in it. If I bring up IGV, you know, it's just me, you know, and again, I'm not faulting anybody for talking about all those names moving, but it's really not rocket science when the whole group is on fire. Red Hat, Splunk, Salesforce, ATVI, Autodesk, Intuit. You could see all these names were up over 3% for the day. So if you manage to have a couple of these in your portfolio, you know, you crushed it today. So real nice move. I have a couple of those names. Workday was another name that was up 3%. I think Data is another name, which I'm surprised I don't see that on the top of the list, but maybe Data is not in here. But so really, I think that was one of the main themes of the day. Is this group really got going? Salesforce was a big winner for me. A lot of people played Microsoft as well. Microsoft finally got going today as well. I mean, it's been going, but just the last 2 days have really accelerated to the upside. So a bunch of traders played this in the room today, and just glad to see this thing after we've seen so much call buying in Microsoft and more call buying today. That really worked. A couple other notables, I would say, besides that enterprise software group, as I'm calling it now. It's also that IGV is tech and software, by the way. But Applied Materials, what a turnaround! I almost what I said was a reversal from a reversal. If you look at Applied Materials started, you know, just really didn't hit the. They had a great quarter, but the price performance just was very lackluster. And then it actually sold off, was down about 0.5% today, and then it turned around and just kept going up and to the right. And this brought a couple names with it. Taiwan Semi, which is a name that we've been playing in the room. This one had a nice day today, up 1%, and has been slowly moving to the upside. So now a profitable position after a couple days where it wasn't. Cypress Semi was another name that saw some call activity today, which it looks like they've been adding to some calls today. Couple other names from the day, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I did. Maxim, there seems to be a lot of rumors about this name being taken out. They bought a little bit more calls. Remember, they bought calls in this name, I want to say, on Friday. So, you know, somebody thinking that this name gets bought out. It seems like every time there's a rumor about them being bought out, it gets denied, you know, within hours later. So kind of weird. Bristol Myers saw some calls. Bristol Myers, a really interesting looking chart. If you bring up the daily chart in Bristol Myers, you know, had a huge day, up 5.5%. But I mean, look at this move in Bristol Myers. You have to zoom out to kind of see what I'm talking about. But remember, they had this big gap down from $75 down to 63 on, I think, a drug miss all the way back here, and it's been in the pit of misery now for quite some time. And it just finally, I mean, this is what you want to see, you know, for a name to get out of range and to start filling the gap. It basically launched higher today on heavy volume. So real nice move. This name already reported earnings. You know, a couple other names in the space, which a lot of traders have been playing as well. This was in our note. In the Tribeca Trade Group note for the weekend. AbbVie up another 1.6% today, so nice move. It was halted today, which is really weird to see a name get halted for a dividend increase, as well as announcing you know, a buyback program as well. Usually names just announce this stuff, but they halted it, so gave some people high hopes of something happening in the name. But continues to be a solid name, and the dividend increase that they did announce is a pretty big one at that too. So repeat call buying on this one all along the way. What else do we see in terms? DHI, another name that really hasn't done much. These home builders have been under pressure with the move in interest rates, but somebody keeps buying this DHI. I'm long this name. I'm in May calls. They keep buying August calls and DR Horton. So I think eventually it's just a matter of time. I'm not predicting anything, but just a gut feeling tells me that this thing turns the corner and starts heading higher. Just hasn't participated. Even names like Home Depot and Lowe's, which are not home builders, but I don't really see any reason why these have not participated yet. Home Depot I believe reports next week, so it might be a nice play for earnings. Considering, sometimes these names it just takes them a little while to get going. They don't have necessarily any bad news. There's been a lot of names that we see some interesting calls go up, but they report earnings next week. CRC was one name that we saw some calls up. Trinity, which I don't even have on my recap, reports I believe next week. So personally, what I tend to do is just avoid those names that report next week. You just don't know why they're buying them. Zoetis reported this morning. We saw some calls go up versus puts. Adobe was another name. How can I forget Adobe? But Adobe saw some calls go up this morning. Another name in that enterprise software area that I mentioned in IGV, very, very strong looking. So, just a lot of progress. A couple other areas that we saw a little bit of call buying. They are trying to buy some calls here and there in some energy names. This energy has been very tricky, I would say. I think it's better for a trade than an investment. It's been just very difficult. You'll get some nice momentum out of the energy names, and then they just fall apart. So there was a little bit of call buying in XOP, which had a big day yesterday. It is back above the 200-day moving average, so I guess you could play fair game there with that name above the 200-day moving average. What else? I feel like I'm forgetting something, but yeah, I mean, all in all, I'll tell you what I have been doing. I would say this is not easy to be holding names that you're wondering where should I be taking profits and so forth. For some of these option trades, I mean, I added positions back on last Wednesday, and some of those were underwater for a couple days, as well as I added positions on Friday. And some of them, it just took a while to get going, but really the last couple days, a lot of the names that I've added have done really well. I also kicked around a lot of names for day trades today. XLU was a nice day trade today. We played T-Mobile on Chatter today. That name I think was managed to get a double in that name. Race, which we saw last week, and this is basically what we do in the trading room. Race was a great trade that I took, I think, 2 days ago. So was able to get out of that for 980, paid 740. So great for a 2-day trade. That's really, really nice. And then what I did was I rolled it out. So I used the same maturity and I rolled not out but up. A lot of this is trade management. Taking some profits and keeping the trades on, but just rolling out and up like a hedge fund or in this case rolling up and strike. Caterpillar was one of those names that I added last week. Hit my first target in that one. EXP, I put this trade on yesterday. Not a huge trade, but put this trade on for $5, and took a target at $6. And after the close, this was announced that Stifel put a nice assumed a rating of a buy on it, and put a nice price target range on it as well. So again, some just really good trades. You could see just the blotter of what I did. So yeah, check out tribacatradegroup.com if you've never tried our trading room before. That's where you go to sign up, and you can get 2 weeks free, no obligation whatsoever. So if you haven't tried it so far, the traders in our room have been absolutely crushing it this week. I don't play every name, but at least I try to at least point out the activity. Mentioned Microsoft was a big winner in the room for some people who have been taking that name. I think Data was another huge winner for a couple people in the room. Or no, not Data. What's the one that I'm thinking of? Workday. really nice. I'm looking at this thing, workday up to a 52-week high, and you can see an MACD crossover as well. So thanks for watching today's video. Again, just an amazing week. But really, it's all about the trade management and how you're handling the moves and the volatility, which is what we go over on a daily basis. So thanks for watching, and have a great evening.